Well, friends, it is day 14 of my 14-day series. So today I want to end with the series. And don't worry, I am going to continue the newsletter and the videos weekly instead of daily. And I'll continue to answer all of the questions that you guys have been sending me. It's been so fun to get DMs and messages from those of you guys that are curious about other things. But I do want to end the 14-day series sharing what happened when I came home. So, as you may recall from an earlier video, I was taken to Pasco County Jail to testify in this other case. And the deal was is that when I testified, my prosecutor, Joe Capone, would file a Rule 35. So he did do that. And 2 weeks later, the motion was set for hearing, which was February 5th, 2015. And Joe called in. The hearing was virtual. Joe called in from DC. David, my attorney, obviously was there live from a hearing. And David had told me the day before in an email, call me at 10, and I should know because the hearing was set at 9. So at 10 o'clock in the morning, I had run and done my thing. I showered and I was waiting by the payphone. There was a row of payphones in the housing unit, so I think there were 4 payphones. So I was waiting like at the strike of 10, and I picked up the phone and I called him. There was like this process you had to go through to make phone calls. And when he answered, all I heard was, "You're going home." And I can't even describe the feeling. It was like an out of body, surreal, I couldn't believe it type of feeling. Internally, I thought, well, as soon as that happened, that meant like the next minute I would be able to leave. I could just walk out and go leave. That's actually not how it works because even though the judge had ordered early release, which meant it was so incredible because I did not have to go to halfway house. I did not have to go to house arrest. I went straight from prison to probation or supervised release, which I recognize as such a gift. But even though the judge had issued the order, there's like this time lapse because that order has to get prepared. Then his assistant or clerk then has to send it to the warden at my prison. Then that took time. Then the warden actually had to receive it, pay attention to it, and then call me into his office. Then I had to go into the office and there's a form that has to get filled out when you're leaving prison. And so there's like various departments. There's laundry, recreation, wellness, my main guard who was in charge of my housing unit. So like medical. And then before you can leave, even though the judge has issued it, I had to go to every guard responsible for each of those departments and get their signature and approval that I could leave. So I did all that. That took a few hours just to even track people down, right? I basically handed out all of the clothing I had bought from commissary, the shoes, all the toiletries, all the food, and I just kind of passed it out to all my friends. The one thing that I did do the night before the hearing was I think I've told you before about the prison hacks. So one of them was chocolate truffles, and Michelle, my bunkie, and helped me make, and we made chocolate truffles because I wanted to arrive home, hoping I had positive intentions, and I totally believed and was praying that I would get the early release and the grant, that the judge would grant it to me. So in anticipation of that, I made chocolate truffles for the kids. And I let them, harden overnight. I had them in a plastic bag and I was ready to bring them home. So as soon as David told me, the next thing I did, of course, is call my parents, which was about 10:15 or so, 10:10. And I called my mom and I was crying and I said, I'm coming home. Dad can leave now because Miami was 5 hours away. And my mom's response was, he left an hour ago. We had faith that you were coming home, which really was very meaningful to me. I just think when you have that positive affirmation, sometimes it works out. You hope. So dad was already on his way. By the time he got there, he still had to wait. It was weird again because similar to when they would visit, I could see from my housing unit that dad had pulled up into the parking lot. And actually, my uncle from Houston was visiting. My mom's brother had been visiting Miami, so he drove up with my dad. Um, and as soon as I was allowed to leave, which was around 3 o'clock, so 5 hours later, I remember like walking out of the receiving and discharge door, and my dad was there with his arms wide open. And I just ran into his arms and hugged him. And it's still like, sorry guys, I'm crying. Like it still reminds me of the elation I had that I could come home. And it didn't feel real. Like I got in the car and my dad, like, I remember one of the first things he did was he handed me my cell phone, which was so weird because I hadn't held a cell phone in like 6 months, And so I held the cell phone and it just felt weird in my hands. And my mom had sent clothes for me, like my own clothes, because I walked out, of course, in like sweatpants and um, this puke brown t-shirt, that I had bought from commissary. And so like we stopped at the first turnpike rest stop. And I remember going in and like peeling off the prison clothes and throwing them in the trash and putting on my own clothes, which felt like, you know, felt like home. When we got home, I had told my parents when I called them not to tell the kids that I was coming home. They were supposed to actually leave the next day. This was a Friday. They were supposed to leave on Saturday early morning to drive up to come see me, to visit me. So I had told my parents, don't tell them, I want to surprise them. So when I got here, it was probably around, if I recall, it was probably around 7:30 or so. And by the time I came home, we pulled up to the front door and I got out, and we have like a patio, like a porte cochere in front of the front door, like a covered patio. And my mom, in the Indian faith and culture, when somebody comes to the house from a long journey or comes for the first time, there's a little worship service that's done to kind of say thanks to the universe and to God. And so my mom came out holding a tray to do this worship with my dad, and my aunts and uncles were there. Everybody was crying. My sister was on FaceTime because she lives in Philadelphia, and they did this. My mom did this worship ceremony, and we hugged, and I was crying. And then we walked in the door. I walked in the door, and like as I walked in the door, Maya and Kyler had been playing whatever they were doing, and I heard Kyler say, "Hey, mom," because it was like such an instinctive, knee-jerk reaction. He didn't even realize it, and like he said it, and then started screaming when they realized it, and Maya started screaming and crying, and I just remember running up to them, and they hugged me, and they just embraced me, and they didn't let go for a while. And actually, my everyone was in tears, and I have this video captured. Actually, it's one of the things I do share from the keynote stage, because it just shows like this moment where in that moment I realized like I'm going to start the new chapter of my life. And I think we all have that opportunity when moments happen, when we struggle through things, to just tell ourselves that we can start something new, we can reinvent our lives, which is absolutely what I've done with my messaging and with the stories that I share, in hopes to encourage other people and empower others to rise through anything, through any struggle or change, or anything, if we just have the courage and conviction to do it. So much of my work now, I get to meet new people all over the world, and I never could have imagined this would have been the result. And it reminds me of what my uncle had said, which I have shared with you guys on an earlier video, that this did not happen to me, it happened for me. And I get the honor now of sharing. And so thank you for going along with me on this 14-day journey. If you missed some videos, go back and watch them. I will continue to share some other moments and questions that people, and answer questions that people have asked me, as I switch over to a weekly newsletter and a weekly video on this topic. If you have any other questions, reach out. I am always available through all the social medias and my email, Rashmi@rashmiairan.com. Thank you so much for listening. It's been really very healing for me. So thanks, guys.